Hey there, folks. Chris McLean back again. And on this episode, I have the lovely Abir from Conscious Business Marketing Solutions. 4 things that I really, really like: consciousness, business marketing, and solutions. So I'm pretty excited to get into this one. And Abir helps entrepreneurs and agencies and small business owners build strategic systems for sustainable growth and time freedom. And she works with startups to tenured businesses where the owner's overworked, overwhelmed, with creating more consistency around staffing, scheduling, and scaling. Sounds very, very cool. Abir, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Great to have you here on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about, obviously, conscious business is something that I'm very, very interested in, obviously marketing and how you sort of systemize and solutionize all that stuff. So take us, how did this come about? How did you sort of build this business out? Where did it come from?
Yeah, I mean, originally I'm a copywriter, so I've been writing for about 20 years. And when I got into writing, I started a little blog back in 2011. I really wanted to showcase independent businesses, independent arts. And within 6 months, I had a PR position open up for me. I had a promotions company in Toronto, where I'm in, the city that I'm in, sort of reach out to me and ask me to help them with their PR. And that's when I started to dive into marketing. And when I started to get into marketing, I really started to appreciate the psychology behind marketing and how it's used to really sort of persuade people in one direction or another. And I started to feel really compelled to work with brands that were persuading people in a conscientious manner. And that's where the conscious aspect of this comes in, is understanding sort of the psychological role that marketing plays, and really wanting to use it to help brands who are helping people get to places that were sustainable for them, but also sustainable for the collective and for the planet. And that's sort of where the conscious business marketing aspect was born. Yeah,
I think that's a lot of that's much more prolific kind of now than it was 10, 20 years ago.
Yes.
Particularly off the back of sort of the last 18 months or so, the stepping into more of how do we make things sustainable, how do we actually lean into doing things that we want to do, be more conscious about ourselves, about how we run our businesses, about who we serve and how we serve, and making sure that we can build have that conscientiousness back into the business that we work with. So what sort of businesses do you sort of end up working with? Do you try to find businesses that are much more conscientious, they're sustainable, they're sort of in that looking after the planet, people, planet, profit, that kind of thing? Are you actively seeking that type of business to work with?
Originally, I was seeking specifically sort of entrepreneurs and business owners and agency owners that were more leaning towards that conscientious side. But like you said, at that time, it was because this wasn't a very well-known sort of niche, and it wasn't very popular. But I've shifted in the last 18 months myself and become a lot more inclusive, because the systems that I build are not unique to conscious brands. I mean, they're really just business systems, sustainable business systems. And then I just use these systems in my coaching to kind of plant seeds. Because at the end of the day, being a conscious entrepreneur is actually better for your business in the long run as well. And there's a lot of stats and statistics out there that showcase that, and have showcased that for quite some time, even though it hasn't been a sort of public opinion. But, when you operate with what I call a higher purpose and a greater vision, and a higher purpose is a purpose that's greater than money. And of course, we want to make money in our business. But I think the analogy that I heard that worked the best for this was, money is like red blood cells in your body. Like, you don't exist to create them, but you need them to survive. And I hope I'm not doing that quote, but
yeah,
right?
that makes sense. Yeah.
So we do need money, and money is important and plays a part in, fulfilling our greater vision. And with greater vision, I mean what we want the world to look like and how we want to sort of have an impact on that from the services or the products that we offer. But at the end of the day, the higher purpose really has to be something that we're passionate about achieving, and that other people can also relate to and feel passionate about as well. And that sort of becomes the unique value proposition of a business as well, because especially when you have so many people and so many brands right now online and so many options for people to choose from, all sort of offering the same thing, what really differentiates us at this point is our stance in these like higher purpose, greater vision. And it allows us to connect with customers on a deeper level. And so, stats have shown that people that feel connected to a brand on these levels, who feel that the brand is showing up not just for them, but showing up for the community, showing up in the world, are more likely to pay more. They're more likely to wait longer. They're more likely to forgive mistakes and errors. And so the long-term sort of sustainable success of that brand stands a higher chance than a brand that's just kind of showing up, taking your money, and providing you a service. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a much more significant shift in that way. Obviously, there's a lot of there's climate change advocacy, and there's a whole movement around your circular economy and more circular systems, more sustainable systems, more reusable, recyclable. There's a lot more conversation around that, even in the last 12 months, even in the last 6 months.
Exactly.
Right, it's become much more part of the standard conversation, even at sort of your higher level organizations, where it's now becoming baked into their reporting. Right, they have to report on ESG, environmental and sustainable governance. There's governance around this stuff now in top tier organizations. So there's much more of a focus on how do we actually not just look at profit, how do we not just look at that single bottom line, how do we start to look at triple bottom line and look at people, planet, and profit?
Yes, exactly.
And like you said, profit is kind of this, when you get this right, profit becomes sort of an emergent property of doing better things, because you can hire better people, right? You can attract better talent. You can attract the talent that wants to work for companies like that.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's that's a huge aspect, right? As you know, of a sustainable a business model is being able to hire people and have people show up for your business in the same manner that you show up for your business. And what better way to do that than to be operating with sort of higher principles in place and to be able to articulate that? Because I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we assume that everybody wants to work for themselves, but that's not the truth. A lot of people just want to work for others who appreciate them, and for people and businesses and brands who represent their values or who share in the same sort of vision as them. And so as well, like you said, so now you're, cutting the turnover rate of staff, reducing that, or, you're getting staff members that, contrary to a lot of public belief, it's not necessarily about how much you're paying people, but also just the whole culture and internal structure around what you're providing for people, and providing people with a job they can show up to and feel proud about showing up to. That makes them more than just your employees and your team members. They're now ambassadors for you when they're not at work as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that I think there's some studies and statistics around that money, in terms of a motivation or a motivator, money caps out at about 75K a year. So once you want anything below 75K a year, like promotions and monetary motivation as an extrinsic motivator is quite effective. But once sort of staff employees hit that 75K, once they're above that, money stops being a prime motivator, and you do get into, as you're saying, what is the vision of this business? Where is this going? How are we contributing? But also how it starts to shift from, I've got my role and I've got my job, but what else is the company offering me, right? How is it letting me contribute to the stuff that I care about? Am I able to go out and do some initiatives where we're planting trees on a weekend? Can I go and clean up some ocean debris? Are we doing these types of initiatives? Is that the focus of the business? So it definitely starts to shift.
Yeah, exactly right. Because we all and also, like, I love that you said that. How can I contribute, right? Because we often too, when we're not doing it right as leaders and as business owners or as agency owners, and we hire people and we pay them and we give them XYZ to do, and we don't afford them the opportunity to like grow or be creative or be innovative, and we're doing ourselves, like, our own business an injustice as well, by trying to take on all of that on our own. Whereas when we create an atmosphere where people can show up and contribute, and we learn how they contribute their best, what they're good at, and sort of help them lean into that, then it becomes like we have literally a team. And I like to say, like, to the business owners that I've worked with that have staff, or where we've brought on staff, I like to encourage them to look at their staff as almost equal partners, and not financially, but with regards to what they bring to the table with ideas and innovations. And I think when we do that, I've seen that really transform what a business is able to do and how they're able to grow.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to really leverage the IP and the knowledge base that's in your business, right?
Yes.
I like to say that a great idea can come from the janitor all the way up to the CEO, right? So
exactly,
anyone can have a great idea given the right conditions, given the right amount of autonomy, right?
Yes.
And having that systemic view of, we're here to support you, we're here to help you, giving people that autonomy to kind of, even particularly, we've seen a bit more of a shift now, that autonomy to work how you want, when you want, from where you want. It's becoming a lot more, I guess, inclusive, if you want to kind of coin a term. But yeah, the more you can do that, the more you can make that, provide that autonomy and that inclusion. There's actually massive peak performance and massive performance benefits from that as well. Just allowing people to, as you say, work from the way that they want to work, get involved in stuff that resonates and is true to them, and allowing them that space and that autonomy to tap into that stuff. It's really, really important. Not just from you get happier employees, right? You get better employee reports. Your people are less likely to go and leave the business, right? So you get that, you say your turnover and that sort of thing reduces you, but then also rates of burnout and churn and all that kind of stuff. So you got happier people, you got healthier people, and a healthier business as a result of that. So it's really, 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 really important stuff for people to understand.
Exactly. And then as, an overwhelmed, burnt out business owner, that's no longer your reality, because now you have people in place that you can trust, right? And so you're okay to take that weekend off, or you're okay to go home early. You're okay to delegate and not micromanage, because you know that you have this sort of internal structure and system in place that supports your ability to, prioritize what you need to be focusing on, delegate what others are better at doing than you are, giving them that autonomy, like you said, letting them sort of show up and be innovative. And so to answer your question, I'll work with any brands now because of the fact that I understand that, originally I was a bit of a snob because I was like, I don't want to help anyone else do well. I just want really conscious. But now I'm, like you said, there's been a massive shift. And I think we're all noticing in one way or another that, the systems in place, whether they be business or politics or medical or whatever, are just not cutting it, right? I mean, we've seen with how society has sort of crumbled over the last 18 months to some degree, because it couldn't, it's a very fragile system that we're currently operating in. And that's not serving us. And so I think a lot more people are sort of waking up to this idea that, like, we need new systems in place. And a lot of entrepreneurs or businesses that weren't originally online, and I'll tell you, like, I wasn't online. I did a lot of my marketing in person, face-to-face events, a lot of referrals, a lot of just going out and meeting people. And so for me to be really active online is even fairly new for me. And so, even with my wealth of knowledge in marketing, I was always doing it for others and not necessarily hopping on myself. And now I'm like, okay, I'm showing up online, and a lot of these businesses and entrepreneurs that also were not online are realizing, okay, they need to be online as well. And so a lot of people are kind of shifting their perspectives and their sort of beliefs around business and around their system, around the way of doing things. And so I really want to like work with anybody who's sort of open to becoming more sustainable, both in their business and the way that it runs. Like, and I call it an ecosystem because it really does work like an ecosystem when you get your schedule in place, when you get your sort of delegation prioritization in place, when you get your messaging really outlined, like who are you really catering to and what can you really offer them? All of these things, you know, work together in a way like an ecosystem. They all feed into each other and they all create this really sort of beautiful way of operating, of like your business sort of self-sustaining itself with you showing up productive, not busy, but productive.
Yeah.
You know, and
a distinction.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people think, well, I'm busy. I'm showing up in my business 6 days a week, you know, 10 hours a day. And it's like, but that's not the same as being productive, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that illusion of time. Literally just did a webinar the other day about this whole shifting time is an illusion, and that traditional productivity model of work harder, working harder equals, or more stuff to do equals burning more hours. It's just is again one of these kind of archaic models that just isn't true. When you look at the biology and the science that underpins how we like to work and what we prefer to do and how we actually perform at our peak.
Yeah.
Hustle, grind, burning 60-hour weeks just doesn't work. If you can restrict that down to a 7-hour day, a 35-hour week, and kind of understand how to leverage that time better, you actually become much more actually productive, way less busy, way more productive, and actually get much more done in less time with less effort, with less stress, overwhelm. And as you're saying, when you've also got that coupled with the leverage of people in your business, that's when you can really start to scale and experience, as you say, that time freedom. So let's get into that. So what does this look like? If I'm a business and I say, right, I want to change what I'm doing, I'm going to go work with Abir. What does that look like? So what are the underpinning components that you start to look at to what do we need to get right to start to move forward in a better way? Yeah.
So, I mean, I do not like a cookie cutter at all. So it's very unique to each business. But there are some things, obviously, processes that I have in place that I like to play with. So the foundational element here, I always start with scheduling. Mindset and scheduling is where I start, because I, truly believe in the 80-20 rule. And in this case, a little bit backwards, I believe that 80% of success really comes down to our mindset and our ability to be open-minded, to have a clear vision of the long-term goal, and to, take insightful action from there. So that we fully understand what the 20% is that's giving us the 80% results, right? So start with something called a strategic schedule that's really catered to the entrepreneur or business owner or agency owner, and that's based on chronotype. Do you know what chronotype is? Have you?
Whether you're a lark or a night owl, or it's basically your biorhythms, right? So whether you like to wake up early or go to bed late, or
So I start by, and that's for me just a jumping ground, because even that, I believe everything is. First of all, I believe everything's about experimentation, right? So I never come in and say, like, this is how it needs to be done. I say, like, let's play with this. Let's start off here, and it's all about testing and really figuring out, what works for you, what works for your ideal client, what works for your audience and your niche and whatnot. So I start with scheduling. I get into chronotype. I also get into, I'm a little mystical with my approach, and I get into something called human design. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, so interesting stuff. It breaks people up into sort of 5 different categories. And based on that, it gives me sort of an impression of people's energy levels. And so I also try to take that away when I'm helping people form a schedule. For instance, there's someone like a reflector or a projector that have less access to high amounts of energy, I might give them a schedule that's like maybe 5 to 6 hours of work a day versus someone that's a manifesting generator that has a lot more energy and can do a little bit more in a day. So I try to, and again, with both of these, I'm never showing up and saying, this is what you are and this is what works for you. I'm always just encouraging and giving people like a jumping off point so that from there they can start experimenting. And a part of that scheduling is really tapping in every day at the end of the day to when your productivity peaks were and what you found yourself doing during that time, where your dips were and what you found yourself doing during that time. And so every day, and then at the end of every week, and then at the end of every month, there's a lot of review going on so that ultimately you're finding out and figuring out what works best for you. For your energy levels and your schedule. And then,
awesome.
And then I focus a lot on messaging because I feel like that is such a huge important factor that a lot of entrepreneurs sort of skim over. There's a lot of people that are sharing tons of content, but not fully understanding, where their ideal client is or where the pain points are in their market, where the mistakes are in their market. And so I really like to help entrepreneurs, business owners, agency owners really get clear on who they're targeting, which is also challenging for all of us because we all show up and we want to help everybody, right? So there's a lot of this like, but I help everybody. And I'm sure you hear that a lot from the businesses you deal with as well. But I can help everybody. And it's like, yes, but let's really get sort of targeted about who we want to help first, and so that we can speak to people directly where they are. And so that's sort of the second element of it, is really helping them get their messaging in place. And by their messaging, that also includes helping them articulate their higher purpose. And like I said, now that I'm working with brands that aren't necessarily visibly or like on the surface conscious, as soon as I start talking to these entrepreneurs, they all have a higher purpose, whether they've articulated that or fully tapped into it to themselves or not, they end up discovering it through this process of discovering their ideal client. So I really help them, discover their ideal client, articulate their higher purpose, articulate sort of their greater vision, and learn how to express all of that. Because then from there, like we were talking about, then we can go into delegation, prioritization, staffing, because now they have that in order, so they know how to communicate that when they're hiring. They know how to communicate that when they're training, and they know how to build a culture around that. And then I also take them down the route of building marketing systems that sort of take the pressure off them. And I don't call it this, I've heard this term used and I love it, future pacing. So I'll get them to set up automations in places where they might not, like for new entrepreneurs, they might not have a huge mailing list yet, but we'll still focus on setting up an automation for opt-ins, and then setting up an automation for, and for existing businesses, setting up an automation for moving people from your opt-in to your offer or to your product, or upselling or cross-promotional. So I focus a lot on helping them sort of create ways to have things in place, whether they need them right away or for the future, so that, when they do get in a position, or content marketing, right? Helping them pre-batch content so that when they are getting tons of clients, their content doesn't start to fall back, right? So that's
do you find that just doing that process kind of, it's this a little bit self-fulfilling?
Yes.
That future pacing, right? Just by saying, okay, now I've got a system, just because they've kind of expanded that consciousness into the future and that future identity, it kind of starts to pull them into that stuff more rapidly.
Exactly. And that's why I call it future pacing. And that's where the mindset stuff comes in too, right? Like, don't just operate, one of the statements I don't like is, stay in your lane. Worst statement ever. It's like, dress the part that you want to be in, get in the lane that you want to be in. And so when you don't have clients yet and you're already setting this stuff up, it's like you said, it becomes this sort of projection into the future of, I'm prepared for clients. And I think that a huge part of why a lot of us, or some of us, don't do well and don't succeed is because we're not prepared for success, right? So we think, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. But what if it shows up and you're not prepared for it, right? So a lot of this is getting people prepared so that part of like, okay, so what if you do get 5 to 6 clients? I was just telling a client that today, right? Because she was a little resistant to batching content because she likes to work on inspiration. And I said, that's great. But what happens when you do start getting 3, 4, 5 clients, you know? So what are you going to do then? Are you going to be able to create content while you're also fulfilling your clients' needs? And she started to really, okay, yeah, I get what you mean now, right? So it's about preparing for that, and that becomes a part of the mindset, like we said, like projecting into the future. I am going to be successful, and I'm ready for it, right?
Yeah, and sort of bringing that. I mean, I think that's Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this stuff, right? Like you've got that future pacing. You want to be that now. And that's how you sort of you bring the future forward, right? You sort of bring that future component now by being that person, as you're saying. Not only am I prepared for having 3 to 5 clients, now that I'm thinking about that, I've started to become the person that can attract 3 to 5 clients. My business is now ready to attract that. So it kind of is this self-fulfilling thing that sort of brings that future perspective forward. But as you're saying, you've got to understand, you've got to know what that future person is, that future business is first, and then you can start to set things up and create the mindset and the motivations and the systems to bring that forward. Love it. Really cool stuff. Joe Dispenza is amazing. Definitely go check him out if bending reality and that kind of thing is if that's your bag, go check him out. So what's the next piece sort of from there?
So I feel like that, okay, so the next piece really becomes innovation and offer diversification. And what I mean by that is that a lot of us, you know, we get stuck in what we offer. So if it's a product or service, we get stuck in like, this is what I offer, this is what I'm good at. But we forget that we can sort of expand that offering, even if it's, and I call it offer diversification because you could have like a coaching program, but then after coaching a certain number of people, then you sort of start to really understand and hone in on those pain points and the mistakes being made and what's really working during your coaching process. And then you can create something like a course from there, right? And so and it looks different for everybody, or for some people, it's like the next step is writing a book. For some people, it might be doing like facilitating group sort of sessions or having a membership program. So obviously it's going to look different for every business and every entrepreneur, depending on what they're passionate about and sort of what direction they're driven. But I really like to get them thinking about the next step. And even for startups, by the end of working with me, I like to get them into, once their website is set up and they're, you know, ready to go and their content marketing, I like to get them into that mindset right away of innovation and diversifying, because that's where we can get really stuck where we are. Because as a coach, right, like maybe you can take, like for me, my max is 6 clients. So once I hit 6 clients, I can't take any more clients. So based on how much I charge, I can only make so much in a given time if I continue to only operate through that system, right? So it's when I diversify, you know, if I create a membership, a course platform, then now there's multiple ways to generate that income without requiring more time, right?
Yeah, got multiple revenue streams coming in.
Exactly.
Now you've leveraged all of your knowledge, right, into different streams of income.
Yeah. And then at that point, you can maybe increase your coaching, what you're charging for your coaching, if you can add the value. I mean, my you know, Evan Pagan, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's one of my mentors. Yeah. I love him. And he always says, you know, whatever you charge, make sure it's worth 10 times the value. And so, right. And so I really like to operate from that frame of mind as well.
I mean, value-based pricing is really where it's at. We sort of ideally want to shift from time for money to what's the actual value of what I'm offering. If I can get my client $100,000 in the bank and I charge $20,000 for it, that's a really good investment, right? Whereas I
Exactly.
might be charging $2,500 a month for that same service without recognizing what the actual
Yeah.
value of it is. So yeah,
And
really
that,
important thing to understand.
yeah. And that transfers for them too, right? I mean, like, think
Mm.
about it. If you buy a watch for $100 versus 10,000, I mean, if you break the $100 watch, you're like, ouch. But if you break the $10,000 watch, you're like, ouch, right? And
Dang.
so
Yeah.
if someone's paying you for something that is worth 20K, but you're only charging 2 to 3K, they're not going to value it for what it's worth,
Mm.
right? And I remember when I first started, I was undercharging, and I was constantly getting pushback from people, from my clients, and I never understood, like, why are they giving me so much pushback? And it's interesting, but as I increased my prices, I got less pushback, so there's a psychology around it for them too. It's like,
Yeah.
they're like, but you want to make it available to everybody. And there's ways to do that. You can offer scholarships. Some people do sliding scale, right? There's ways, or you generate enough money where you can offer, have somebody come in for free, or, work with people that don't have the money but have the drive. But at the end of the day, what I've realized is that it's sort of twofold. It's that mindset of like getting out of that lack mentality, investing in your business, investing in your ideas. And then that also holds people accountable, because now they're like, wow, I spent 20K. I'm really going to listen to this person. I'm really going to do what they've asked me to do. I'm going to implement everything. And that's where the magic really happens, right?
Yeah. It's that burning bridges, right? You sort of 20 grand kind of lights that bridge on fire, and there's no going back. I'm stepping into this. I'm committed. Yeah, there's definitely a psychology there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. I'm sure we could probably go on for another 4.5 hours, Abir. Yeah, exactly. We could keep going, but we realize that the internet has a very short attention span these days. But yeah, I think that's an amazing process, and I love that you got a very tactical, practical way to bring this stuff down into helping businesses tap into much more of this conscientiousness and sustainable business practice. If people want to come and find out more about you, learn more about you, come work with you, where's the best places for them to come and find you?
So Conscious Business Marketing Solutions, that page is actually going up tonight because of this video. But I do have strategicbusinessecosystems.com that you can go to. That's just a landing page for existing businesses. But otherwise, connecting with me on LinkedIn, connecting with me on Facebook, you can direct message me through either of those platforms, and then, through LinkedIn or Facebook, there's a link to book a free consult with me. It's a 45-minute consult, and it's more than a consult. It's literally like a mini brainstorming session. And yeah, that's really the best way, because again, because it's not a cookie cutter process, it's unique to every business. It's so important for me to like talk to people and understand what their goals are and see if I'm the right fit for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. See if they're a good fit for you, you're a right fit for them. Very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So please reach out to Abir if you're looking to become more conscientious, more conscious in your business. And if what we've talked about today sounds as good to you as it does to me, definitely reach out, and I will drop all of those links in the show notes as always. So you can simply click a link and go and book in one of those sessions and start working with Abir if it's a good fit for you. Thank you so much again. So we'll probably have to have you back on again. I'm sure we could continue talking all things consciousness for the next 45 minutes, but I'll let you carry on with your day. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you for spending the time here with me today, Abir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, you too. Thanks everyone. See you on the next.